Social influences affecting self-identity in adolescence. Self-identity or self-concept is the process of exploring the self as a product of interpersonal or group processes. Self-identity is an area which is highly researched in social psychology and is influenced by many factors. In this section of the presentation, I will be discussing the impact that family has on adolescent self-identity development. The family environment that an adolescent grows up in plays a significant part in their ability to develop a stable identity. Bowlby's attachment theory states that children have a fundamental need to develop a bond with their primary caregiver from birth. If a child does not successfully create this attachment, then they may suffer from future developmental consequences. Although there are individual differences in how adolescents form their self-concept, there is still evidence to suggest that having a strong attachment with their mother can allow adolescents to feel they've achieved their identity. This bond with the mother can also be beneficial in the resolution of identity crises, although being attached to their father does not seem to have the same effect. More recent research has contradicted this finding, however, stating that attachment to the mother was not found to play a role in the identity formation process. Instead, being attached to the father was found to be positively related to the identity achieved status. This bond with the father may also enable adolescents to explore and commit to an identity. These studies used self-report measures to determine family structure, attachment, and adolescent identity. This means that results are very subjective, and therefore results may actually not be accurate. Due to the contradiction found, these findings are inconclusive. However, further research expanded on this and found that supportive, nurturing parent-child relationships associated with commitment making, identification with commitment, and exploration in depth and breadth. In this study and others like it, commitment making was negatively associated with emotional separation from parents. However, both commitment dimensions were positively correlated with supportive parenting and an absence of conflict. Exploration in depth was negatively associated with both emotional and functional separation and was facilitated by functional independence from parents. It was also facilitated by supportive parenting and feeling emotionally close to and depending functionally on parents. There are some limitations to these studies, however, including the use of mainly Caucasian students from a middle-class background and the gender bias of more females than males. A more recent study took this into account by examining whether there was a cultural difference between Caucasian youths and African American youths. They found that there was a relationship between family cohesion and identity commitment, although this association was stronger in males than in females. There are also racial differences. For African American adolescents, there was a negative correlation between family cohesion and adaptability and identity exploration. This relationship was not found in Caucasians. Despite this, it cannot be proven that family is the reason for this cultural difference. In general, self-identity differs depending on cultural values. For example, Americans tend to develop an independent view of the self in that they wish to be unique, whereas individuals in other countries, such as Japan, are encouraged to emphasize similarity to others, and therefore experience themselves in relation to the social context rather than the individual one. Not only attachment to parents can facilitate self-identity achievement, the family values as a whole can also play a role. If the parents are stable within their marriage and set clear boundaries to their children, adolescents are better able to develop their identity. It has been found that adolescents whose mothers and fathers are both in their first marriage have the fewest problems with socio-emotional adjustment, academic performance, and global well-being. This family structure can serve to promote the formation of adult identity. When adolescents come from single-parent families, their subjective view of feeling that they have reached adulthood is driven by the lack of economic resources, whereas in step-parent families it's affected by processes such as relationship quality, responsibilities, and monitoring. Overall, family relationships must be secure in order to provide the support that young people need to carry out meaningful exploration and experimentation. This can enhance social confidence and in turn improve the quality of identity development. Communication is an important factor as family members who are open in terms of expressing and resolving conflict produce adolescents who are more likely to feel they've achieved personal identity. A highly normative identity style has been associated with parental warmth, family cohesion, and emotional closeness within the family. Adolescents must have open, trusting relationships in which they are willing to communicate and disclose information to their parents in order to develop a normative identity. Those adolescents who develop a mature identity are most likely to come from warm family backgrounds. The ideal conditions for adolescent identity development in families include high levels of family cohesion and adaptability. Upbringing characteristics should include positive interest, acceptance of the child, and a high degree of consistency. The presence of opposite characteristics such as low positive interest and low levels of consistency, as well as significant emotional distancing, are associated with the development of problematic children who struggle to develop a positive identity. A final factor that can influence adolescent identity formation is the effect of siblings. Research has shown that older same-sex siblings are particularly influential in the identity development of their younger brothers or sisters. Younger siblings look up to their older brothers and sisters as role models of appropriate attitudes and behaviours, and therefore imitate these. However, there is evidence to suggest that adolescents may actually differentiate themselves from their siblings in order to avoid conflict. Sibling de-identification is the process by which siblings tend to define themselves and be defined by family members as different from one another in terms of personality. Through this process, siblings may develop distinct traits and take part in different behaviours in order to establish their unique identities within the family. Research has suggested, however, that younger siblings may de-identify with their older siblings because those siblings treat them badly, and they may model their older siblings that they have a warmer and more intimate relationship with them. This refutes the original de-identification theory of simply trying to be unique. In conclusion, family functioning plays a significant role in shaping adolescent self-concept and identity formation. In particular, a supportive family environment encourages progressive identity development. However, future research should further explore this area with wider samples to include more male participants and a wider variety of cultures.
How do peers influence adolescents' identity development? A stable and strong self-identity in adolescence is positively correlated with positive mental health. Good, healthy and positive relationships with peers are also associated with positive mental health and well-being. Although relationships with parents during this stage are very much hold importance, it is the adolescent's relationship with peers which takes focus. Research has shown that the development of self-identity during adolescence is directly related to their relationship with peers and a sense of belonging. Research has also indicated that having good and supportive relationships with peers is directly linked to the formation of identity during adolescence, as stagnation is prevented during the exploration of identity. During the adolescent stage, peers can also have detrimental effects on one's self-identity. Conformity plays a role in acceptance. Peer pressure and negative influences such as romantic relations and peer rejection are highly correlated with delinquency, poor mental health and unstable emotions. All dynamics of relationships with peers provide opportunity for negotiating and compromising differences and moral development. Theories. Erik Erikson's Stages of Psychosocial Development proposes an underpinning theoretical explanation of identity development, constituting 8 developmental stages throughout the lifespan. Stage 5, identity versus identity confusion, occurs specifically during adolescence, in which adolescents will explore various different roles within different peer groups for successful resolution in hopes to find their positive and preferred identity to solidify a sense of self. However, it was not without criticism. The main criticism is that Erikson's research was based upon observations of adolescents going under therapy, therefore it's not generalisable and has been adapted upon. Influential theorist and researcher James Marcia is renowned for his work in identity formation and contradiction, and elaborated upon Erikson's identity crisis and identity confusion. He criticised Erikson's claims that adolescence is a period of crisis and proposed that adolescence's identity formation is determined mainly by choices and commitments individuals make regarding their personal and social qualities and morals, focusing more upon personal exploration and commitment to certain life domains. Upon findings from a semi-structured interview, 4 statuses of psychological identity development were proposed. 1. Identity diffusion. 2. Identity foreclosure. 3. Identity moratorium. 4. Identity achievement. Marcy's work continues to be developed in accordance with updated research. As adolescents' cognitive abilities, such as reasoning and problem solving, are developing, rapid moral development also occurs. This is underpinned by Kohlberg's theory. A critique of Kohlberg's theory is that it emphasises just to the exclusion of others' values, and is therefore not as generalisable to non-Western cultures. Conformity is the act of matching attitudes, beliefs and behaviours to what individuals perceive as normal of their society or social group. As adolescence is a developmental stage of developing autonomy into wider social contexts, research shows that peer influence is a main factor affecting perceptions and behaviours contributing to identity development. Self-exploration is a key component to adolescents' identity development, as recognised by Marcia. A study found support for Marcia's theory in which identity-committed adolescents had a tendency to conform less to peers' responses during ICAH's line of judgment experiment opposed to participants who had lower identity development. Due to the context of the relationship with peers, risky behaviours such as consuming drugs and alcohol, committing crimes, and unsafe sex can occur. Peer pressure can also encourage bullying during adolescence, which will negatively impact on lowering self-esteem. A critique of all theories is that research investigating adolescents' peer relations has developed and become very diverse and complex. This discipline can no longer be conceptualized by dominant key issues or with dominant theories and research paradigms. The study found that most adolescents belong to more than one peer group and that they will change their behaviour, values and beliefs in accordance with which group they are interacting with at that given time. There is a consensus among psychosocial scientists that within developed societies, the transition from childhood into adulthood has become progressively prolonged into the early to late 20s and beyond. The reasons for this are unclear and there is scope for further research, although the quality of peer relations is thought to be a main factor. This criticises the developmental milestone stage of adolescence. A study by Roberts and Court investigated this and proposed a new theoretical model to explain identity formation. The identity development of adolescents is positively correlated with their interactions within peer relationships. This is the main constituent of adolescent self-identity development. A sense of belonging to a peer group and the dynamic of the relationship with peers is fundamental to self-identity formation. Relationships centered upon acceptance with mutual respect are positively associated with good adolescent identity development. Possible personality-related factors associated with adolescents' identity development and their relationship with dynamic with peers are unclear. Potential factors which are associated with good social relationships include the adolescent's capacity to be empathetic and the diversity of the meaning of the sense of self to the individual. There is a gap in literature which indicates that further empirical research studying the connections between adolescent identity development, empathetic ability, self-concept and peers relationships have been identified.
Education. A factor which influences an adolescent's self-concept is their education. Academic achievement, motivation and success are all factors which can explain why someone would have a high or low self-concept, accompanied by encouragement and belief from teachers and peers. Swan, Schneider and McClarty 2007 provide a review of research on an array of self-measures and found that the relationship between self-concept and school achievement is very specific. Within the domain of educational psychology, academic self-concept, or ASC, refers to a student's self-perception in specific disciplines such as maths self-concept, science self-concept, or more general academic areas. Research concluded that academic self-views predicted several types of academic outcomes, whereas global self-esteem did not. According to research, it has been found that a positive academic self-concept is an important means to assist in academic success and has been considered as one of the key components of education. For example, if a student experiences success within an academic environment, then their academic self-concept is in turn enhanced. As a result of this, an increase in drive and student motivation is evident, accompanied by their academic achievements which strengthen. Students who inhabit a positive academic self-concept are more likely to perform better after an initial failure or setback, as they have the confidence and perseverance. This causes them to feel a sense of control over their successes, as they believe they are caused by their own abilities and investments. These students have a high expectancy for success and high levels of self-efficiency, which consequently allows them to be expected to continue the level of diligence and offer a sustained effort when performing future academic tasks. However, a negative educational experience can result in a self-conception of a poor student. This can become elaborated and can be seen to be interwoven with other negative self-conceptions such as lazy, stupid, or failure. These frequent activations of negative self-concepts can lead into a subconscious automated processing that one is not even aware of, and subsequently has an effect on how the young person feels and their decision making. Students who possess a low academic self-concept take precautions to protect their self-esteem in academic settings, where one would expect high self-esteem students to engage in their academia. You would expect a student exhibiting a low academic self-concept to engage in self-handicapping strategies in order to provide a non-threatening excuse for failure. These strategies may therefore be used to reflect a self-serving bias along low self-concept students. The Big Fish Little Pond effect, or BFLPE, which was founded by March 1984, is seen as one of the most influential theories of the student academic self-concept forming process. It describes the phenomenon that students in selective schools will always have a lower self-concept than students with comparable ability that attend regular schools. This highlights that the Big Fish Little Pond effect is good to one's self-concept. There's been a vast amount of research into the relationship of the Big Fish Little Pond effect in regards to academic self-perceptions, comparing achievements between students in selective schools to regular schools, but there is a significant decline in research regarding the Big Fish Little Pond effect and gender bias in schools. A study by Prekel, Zeidner, Gortz and Schleyer 2008 re-examines previous research into the Big Fish Little Pond effect on a national sample of 769 gifted Israeli students, 32% of which were female, which was previously investigated by Zeidner and Schleyer in 1999. This re-examination of data in regards to gender bias and gender ratio in classroom settings highlights and supports the notion that the Big Fish Little Pond effect does good for one's self-concept. However, it also highlights that females' academic self-concept is negatively affected by gender ratio, whereas it bears no influence on the male self-concept. Although this seems to be a helpful result, it cannot be generalised to Western school systems, as the study took place in Israel, which holds different attitudes towards school systems and education, especially females in education. However, a study by Marsh and Howe 2003 researched the negative effects of academically selective schools, using a sample of approximately 4,000 15-year-olds across 26 countries. They examined this by giving each participant the same self-concept instrument and achievement tests. The results of the study are consistent with the notion that academically selective schools provide a negative impact on student self-concept, and demonstrates that the demographic placement of the schools bears no influence on whether or not the students are affected by the Big Fish Little Pond effect. The sheer mass of research into the topic of academic self-concept has highlighted that self-concept is a major contributor to one's success within educational settings. This prevalent influence of self-concept has resulted in many educational policy statements, such as the Ministerial Council on Education, Employment, Training and Youth Affairs 1998, which holds the development of positive self-concept as one of the key goals for education throughout the world.
Media. Erikson's 8-stage theory of psychosocial development describes both growth and change throughout life. It focuses on social interactions and conflicts that arise during the different stages of development. This has been discussed to underpin and somewhat rationalise and explain to an extent the positive and negative impact social media can have on adolescence. Bondura's social learning theory, however, is another theory that encompasses and underpins the effect of social media on adolescence. It is underpinned by the rationale that behaviours can be acquired through the observation of others and through the imitation of these behaviours, even in the absence of motor imitation or direct reinforcement. In addition to the observation of behaviour, learning also occurs through the observation of rewards and punishment, a process known as vicarious reinforcement. When a behaviour is rewarded regularly, it will most likely persist. Equally, if a specific behaviour is continuously chastised, it will most likely discontinue. This can be witnessed in adolescent social media regarding posting online. Negative feedback to post will generally cause an adolescent to not post again similar content. When an adolescent receives what is deemed to be positive feedback, it becomes positive reinforcement to post similar content. Both negative and positive feedback affecting the self-concept of the individual, which is rationalised from further slides underpinned by research. Self-concept theory is also a theory underpinned by the rationale that behaviour is learned and not inherited. It discusses self-concept to be influenced heavily by social factors such as the interaction with others. Adolescence is a stage of development that individuals play with their sense of self, experimenting and comparing themselves to others. Social media is discussed to be a major influencing factor and the comparison adolescence makes to others within this stage of life. Rationalised by this stage being discussed to be a stage where adolescents are susceptible to the influence of their peers alongside chemical changes within the brain. Self-esteem and psychological well-being in regard to social media are two of the most common interests within psychological research, a key ever-present debate being whether higher use of social media within the adolescent stage of development affects self-concept. A study hypothesised that social media would rather either diminish or enhance self-esteem retrospectively. The results displayed in contrast to other publications that by reviewing one's own Facebook profile, self-esteem was enhanced. Participants that updated and viewed their own Facebook profile during the experiment reported greater self-esteem in opposed to those who did not. It was discussed that the results rationalised selective self-presentation in digital media, which intensified relationships and their formation and enforced impressions of their own self-concept. A longitudinal study within a month time interval conducted amongst adolescents was carried out. The surveys used consisted of self-concept ideals. The academic self-concept questionnaire was utilised. Negative online feedback was monitored and collated with cyber popularity. The results suggested those participants that received negative cyber feedback displayed lower self-esteem and changes within their self-concept. The often discussed HomeNet study discovered a correlation between lengthier social media use and depression, seclusion, and smaller societal groups, all underpinning factors of an adolescent's self-concept. It has, however, been heavily critiqued by a follow-up longitude study. No correlation with long-term social media use and depression seclusion was suggested. Binary specifications within the study of whether an adolescent uses social media for a lengthier timescale or not was discussed to not be a predictor of self-concept or self-esteem. This is rationalised by an underpinning suggestion that previous studies treat social media as a one-dimensional activity. The question is therefore proposed of why may earlier studies within this area consistently suggest social media as having a negative effect on self-concept, while recent studies suggest that an opposite and positive correlation is suggested. Two major changes within this area have been noted and discussed. Researchers have since observed that early studies found it difficult to maintain one's existing social media network owing to the network's greater part not actually being live online yet. Past social media sites such as chat rooms and chat forums specifically designed to connect and facilitate conversations between strangers. The advancement in technology and societal changes have since been witnessed. Parents, peers and family find themselves all connected via social media. Adolescents overall do not use social media to connect with strangers, like it is suggested in earlier research, and use social media to maintain connections with family and friends. Self-disclosure is also witnessed more within the current social media context. Adolescents, in comparison to social media that consisted of chat rooms, now disclose more personal information. Specifically, research has discussed that when adolescents divulge and express additional data about themselves, the eminence of their relationships improve. The improvement in these relations is suggested to impact positively upon self-concept.
Previous research has established that there is a positive relationship between religion and identity in adolescence. It is widely agreed upon that religion provides a very distinct setting for identity exploration in adolescence. G. Stanley Hall wrote about the normality and necessary qualities of religious conversion in adolescence. However, Freud referred to religion as a mere illusion derived from human wishes. Adolescence is a time when we develop our own beliefs and start to make important decisions for ourselves. It is also a time when many adolescents make decisions on the groups they fit into. This can be socially but also religiously. In adolescence, we decide on our core beliefs, and these can be influenced by religion. It is believed that religious identity is positive for youth development. Religion is often used as a developmental resource by adolescents and can be associated with personal meaning and concern for others. Adolescents struggle to develop their identity and can often be seen keenly searching for a sense of self. Religion offers the chance to adolescents for confirming the development of their own uniqueness and independence. Religion presents adolescents with the opportunity to explore their beliefs, moral codes, and values from which they can build their own personal belief system.
Erickson recognised religion's potential in identity development. He pointed to religion as an important aspect of the socio-historical matrix in which identity takes shape. He argued that religion is the oldest and most persistent institution that promotes the development of faithfulness, the commitment and loyalty to an ideology that emerges upon the successful conclusion of the psychosocial crisis of identity formation. He explained that religion not only provides a worldview that grounds moral beliefs and behavioural norms in an ideological base, but religious traditions also represent these ideological norms in a population of believers. Religious beliefs, values and morals enable youth to make sense of the world and understand their place in it. Such ideologies give meaning to events and experiences, particularly in a nation where youth faces an ever-changing and chaotic existence. In 1964, Erickson wrote that transcendent meaning found in religion is vital to adolescent identity formation and well-being. Without such a worldview to give meaning and guide behaviour, the choices and options before youth are likely to lead to confusion and despair. Religion offers ultimate answers and perspective about the larger issues in life. Gardner wrote, "Young people do not assimilate the values of their group by learning the words and their definitions. They learn these in intensely personal transactions with their immediate family and associates. They do not learn ethical principles, they emulate ethical or unethical people. They do not analyse or list the attributes they wish to develop. They identify with people who seem to them to have these attributes. This suggests that individuals' self-identity could be recognised through social learning theory, or as Oman and Thoreson referred to it as spiritual modelling. Spiritual modelling refers to imitating another or to grow spiritually. This occurs through watching and replicating the life or behaviour of one or more spiritual examples. Spiritual examples are people living or historic that serve as role models of religious ideologies and values. Although spiritual modelling is founded on social modelling and observational learning in the acquisition and maintaining of human behaviours, it is not theoretically linked to identity. Observational spiritual learning suggests that social significance of religion and spirituality. In conclusion, religion can be seen to be useful for allowing adolescents to search further than themselves and find a sense of belongingness and connectedness to something greater than themselves, as well as seeking confirmation of their uniqueness and fundamental individual worth. However, religion can also hinder some aspects of growth. For example, if a religious tradition emphasises the faith community without valuing the uniqueness of its members, adolescents may not have the necessary opportunities to explore different aspects of their identity.
My personal strengths in this group work have been literature searching and time management. However, a weakness has been group cohesion. It has been challenging to get everyone to meet up at the same time to read each other's work and make sure that everything flows. To combat this, we have been frequently messaging everyone in the group chat to ensure that everyone's on the same page. I have developed some skills from this project, including synthesising literature and improving my communication skills. However, if I were to do this assignment again, I would aim to regularly meet up with the whole group to compare notes and make sure everyone's content was cohesive.
During this reflective account, I'm going to focus on my out-of-university commitments and how they affected the group presentation. I will also focus on what was learned and how my learning is applicable to other life domains. I lead a busy and demanding life with university and a parent of 3 children. I find it difficult to meet up with other members of the group as our times to meet were different due to our individual commitments and different locations. However, I feel I made a good effort to communicate my concerns with the group by voicing my opinion and availability clearly and concisely. After some communication via messaging, we all came to an arranged time and way of putting our presentation together into format. For future reference, I will try and organise childcare more efficiently. Working on this presentation, I've developed my communication and interpersonal skills. It was daunting to be in a group with peers I did not know well, but I feel I made an effort to introduce myself and get to know them, especially for the sake of the assessment, as my main focus was for us all to do well. This will be helpful in future work situations as I have developed my communication and problem solving skills. I have also learned that my organisational skills need refining, as organisation is the main constituent to meet demands and with less stress.
Working in a group has highlighted that my strengths are being able to manage time efficiently. Effective time management is a key component to any group dynamic, as it allowed me to meet deadlines and get my work done in accordance with the group members. Also, I've learned to prioritise my uni work above other social aspects in my life in order to successfully complete my part of the project. However, group meetings were lacking as our timetables clashed with other priorities, which affected the group coherence. In future group projects, I plan to dedicate a certain time slot which is best for everyone to meet, which can improve communication within the group in the hopes to develop future work prospects. Personally, I need to work on my stress levels by splitting up my work into manageable chunks to prevent me from being overwhelmed.
Through completing this assignment, I have managed to work on my time management skills and allow myself to prioritise assignments over work and social life. I have found that we struggled as a group to allot time to work together as we had issues with timetable clashes and other assignments.
Having 5 people within the group made it difficult to cater for everyone when it came to meeting up in order to put work together and look at each of the slides. Family and work commitments became an issue when it came to meeting up at a convenient time that suited everyone. Also, having work due in for the other modules seemed to put pressure on each group member. However, the deadline being extended alleviated some of this pressure. I feel the biggest issue within the group was being able to meet up at a time and day that suited everybody. This largely being down to some living in Middlesbrough and some people living further afield. I myself living in Hartlepool and having to use public transport due to my car being in the garage created issues. On reflection, I think it would have been beneficial to the group as a whole to all have attended all seminars and worked on the project within the seminars. This was not always possible due to work commitments.